The Sustainable Consumption and Production Hotspot Analysis Tool, short SCP HAT, is an online application that provides data to analyze environmental and socio-economic performance for almost all countries in the world from 1990 to 2018. The tool offers empirical evidence of so-called hotspots where unsustainable consumption and production practices are particularly prevalent and policy action is needed. SCP HAT allows for an analysis of a range of environmental pressures and related impacts, such as raw material use, GHG emissions, or biodiversity loss, and also offers basic socio-economic data like GDP, Human Development Index, employment, and economic value added. SCP HAT looks at pressures and impacts of domestic production and consumption footprint. From the domestic production perspective, environmental pressures and impacts are allocated to the country where they physically occur. For example, the GHG emissions that occurred during the production of wheat in the USA are allocated to the domestic production of the USA, even if the wheat is exported. For the consumption footprint perspective, SCP HAT uses a unique framework that combines national data with trade information. This approach shows the environmental consequences of a country's consumption occurring abroad by tracing environmental pressures and impacts along the supply chain of the goods and services consumed within this country. Developed to fit the needs of a range of stakeholders, the SCP HAT comprises two modules. The first module shows the overall profile of each country, with the policy context and key information on a country's SCP performance clustered under 7 environmental categories. This module is meant for policymakers, NGOs, and the general public. A second module, called Hotspots Identification, provides a wide range of SCP indicators, covering environmental pressures and impacts, as well as key socio-economic indicators, to analyze hotspots of unsustainable consumption and production at country and sector level. These results can be used to set priorities within the design of SCP policies. This module is best used by policy advisors and experts. The different modules can be accessed via the menu on the top page. The section labeled Methods and Data provides a brief explanation of the methods as well as definitions and data sources for all the indicators. A more comprehensive explanation can be found in the technical documentation, which is available here. Another feature is the standard reports, which can be accessed from the top menu as well. These are reports on specific predefined topics, like sector profiles, that can be shown and downloaded for any country and sector. Through uncovering hotspots of unsustainable consumption and production, the SCP HAT informs the design of science-based policies towards sustainable development.